This is a tutorial to show our family and close friends how we mix her TPN and lipids. I'm sharing with everyone because someone watching may be overwhelmed at the thought of having to do this for themselves or their child, and I want you to see it's completely manageable. As always, start with washing or sanitizing your hands. We weren't trained to use a mask while doing this, but you can if it makes you feel more comfortable. I went through a time where I always did, and now I do it intermittently. When we were unsure of ourselves at the beginning, it took us about 45 minutes to mix everything. Now it only takes me about 12. This can be mixed up to 10 hours before you actually connect her. This is because her cycle currently runs 14 hours, which equals 24 hours. TPN has to be done infusing 24 hours after it's mixed. From her fridge, grab 1 bag of TPN and 2 vials of vitamins. The bigger one will have a blue cap and the smaller one will have a pink cap. Next, open the first drawer and grab one of almost everything. This will include 1 large syringe, 1 small syringe, 1 anti-siphon valve, 2 bags of tubing, 1 filter that is blue, 1 filter that is clear, and 4 pairs of alcohol pads. From the second drawer, grab 1 lipids bag. Her lipids are called SMOF lipids. She has 2 sets of pumps that we alternate every other day. Remove the chargers from the new ones and put the old ones back on so they can charge for the next day. It is important to check the TPN script that is printed on the white sticker on the front of each bag. The most current script is tacked to her whiteboard. Make sure her name, birth date, and date to be infused by are correct. Next, you compare the ingredients and numbers to make sure they match up. The lipid script is not so involved. It is not made specific to her needs. Her doctors just decide what volume she gets at what time interval. Use 1 alcohol pad to wipe down the cookie sheet. I pop the lids off the vitamins. Put the syringes on the table in front of the appropriate vial, small with small and large with large. Open the lipids bag and place on the cookie sheet. Open the anti-siphon package and take out the 2 pumps. Open the filter and tubing bags. You will see 1 filter has an S written on it. That is a blue filter and it has to be attached to the lipids bag. Take 1 filter and 1 tubing set. Put the 2 ends you will connect in one hand and remove the caps with the other hand. Be sure your fingers do not touch the open ends. If they do, it must be thrown out and you get a new one. You will see the connections are male and female. Carefully connect the 2 ends and push the plastic casing over the connection and twist until it is snug. Repeat this with the next tube and filter set. Lastly, take the clear filter tube and the anti-siphon valve. Place in your hand the same way you did earlier and connect them together. This anti-siphon valve will be the piece that actually connects to her central line. It prevents blood backup. This is how I lay everything out when I do this every day. For me, it's imperative that everything has a place and is in an order that makes sense. It is important to note before starting that when you clean anything during this process, you must vigorously scrub the surface for 15 seconds and then allow it to dry for 15 seconds. This picture shows caps scrubbed from 0 to 15 seconds. As you can see, there are still germs left on the cap unless you scrub for the full 15. The germ killing actually happens during the drying time, so it is imperative to get to dry for the full 15 seconds before connecting. Some hospitals have a protocol to scrub for 30 and let dry for 30. The minimum, though, has to be 15. Twist the blue cap off of the lipids bag. Leave the white cap on. Scrub the blue cap for 15 seconds. And then lay it down without the cap touching anything. Grab the lipids pump. It has the S on it for SMOF. Grab the tubing set with the blue filter. Pop the cassette in and close the door. When you remove the cap from the tube spike, it will already be sterile and will not need to be scrubbed. Making sure neither surface touches anything, insert the spike in the blue hole. You have now spiked the bag. Next, you're going to get ready to prime the lipids through the tubing, so you'll hang it on the pole. You want to make sure the filter is right side up when you prime through the line. Hanging it on the pole like this ensures it will be. You will see the blue label at the top right corner of this pump that says continuous. That ensures you have the right pump for the lipids. What is nice about this is that the cap on the lipids bag, the label on the pump, and the filter are all blue. Press prime and prime again. It will automatically prime the lipids through the line for 50 seconds. You must loosen the cap at the end of the tubing as air is being primed out. Just a little twist is enough. You don't want the cap to come off. You can tighten when it is done. When it gets to the filter, it will fill up in the front and then fill in the back before finishing in the last bit of tubing. As said before, make sure the filter stays right side up until it is filled with lipids. After that, it does not have to stay in any certain position. Sometimes air bubbles can get caught in this connector piece. I flick this area to make sure I get any bubbles that can be primed out. The filter is designed to catch and keep these bubbles from getting to her. Sometimes small ones develop past the filter. Those won't hurt her. Only large ones, like longer than a foot in length, could cause trouble. Now it's time to prepare the TPN. The first thing I do is I put 2 alcohol pads on the tops of the vitamins. I do this because on more than one occasion, I go into autopilot mode and forget what I've cleaned. This just makes sure everything gets done. The rest of the wipes can also be opened. Remove the red foil. For 15 seconds, scrub the top of the first vial closest to you. While it dries, scrub the surface of the port you just removed the red foil from. Pick up the corresponding syringe. Since you cleaned the small vial, you'll use the small syringe. Pull back the plunger to 1 milliliter, twist the needle to the left to tighten, and remove the cap. Push the needle into the top. Push the plunger all the way down. Flip the vial upside down and pull out 1 milliliter. There's an inner circle showing the target as to where to aim the needle to make sure it goes in straight. Insert the needle in the center, trying to keep it as straight as you can, and push the plunger. I put the cap back on the needle. Repeat the process with the larger vial. This time, you will pull back to 4 milliliters. Shake the bag to mix everything up. I also find it's best to hit the bag to get the air bubbles to rise to the top. We are now ready to spike this bag and prime. To do so, we'll twist off the cap from the middle port and scrub the surface for 15 seconds. You'll never do anything with that blue foil. Grab the TPN pump, which has a T on the top. You will see this pump has an orange label in the right-hand corner that says TPN to make sure you're using the right pump. Using the clear filter set, you'll do the same process to spike this bag. I hit the bag one more time to remove any trapped air bubbles from the middle port. Loosen the cap to prime. After the TPN line is primed, now it'll be time to connect the 2 lines together. You're going to connect the lipids line into the TPN line, as you can see from the picture, not the other way around. It has to be like this because the TPN line, which has the clear filter, is a little bigger and lets both TPN and lipids run through it at the same time. Just after the clear filter, you will scrub the connector piece for 15 seconds. While it dries, pick up the lipids line and carefully remove the cap from the end of the tube. This is already sterile, so you don't need to scrub it. After 15 seconds, push the lipids into the connector piece and twist until it is snug. You have just wide in the lipids. Sometimes there can be an air bubble where the lipids and TPN connect. The last thing you need to do is prime the lipid pump just a little to make sure there's no bubble. If there is, you just let the pump run until the bubble is out. Lastly, grab the styropor tape from her gray basket above her whiteboard. Tear off a piece about 2 inches in length. Flag it at this area of her tube. We'll be using this when we connect her later. Make sure that blue cap is tightened, and I always put extra protection and I wrap it in this alcohol pad. The sharps container is on the first shelf in her cupboard on the right hand side. I just throw the needles in there and the syringes and recycle. Here's how to lock and unlock the screen for when you put the pumps in a bag. You press lock, patient lockout, and then when you want to unlock, just press that, 8880, enter, and then that is how it is unlocked. Here are some common troubleshooting problems and their solutions. The most common one we see are occlusions. Usually it just means that something's kinked and you kind of have to move it around. Sometimes we just have to pop out the cassette and pop it back in on the pump, and that solves the problem. Here are a few more problems and solutions. I will talk more about the air in the line next. This is the air screen when too many air bubbles accumulate in the cassette. The previous screen showed some troubleshooting techniques to resolve this, but this is what works for us. So the first thing you want to do is press mute and OK, so it mutes the sound for a bit. Pop the cassette out, and this is where the bubbles get caught, right in this little area right here. So we just hit it on the pump, her bed, whatever, just trying to get the bubbles to pop up in the tubing. And then when you see the bubbles pop up in the tubing, you just want to flick them until they go all the way back up into the bag. Then we continue to flick up, and I hit the bag to try to get the air bubbles that might be caught where the bag is spiked. And as you can see, there's tiny little champagne bubbles, so hitting that helps them go up. Then when you think you are done, just pop the cassette back in and press request continue, OK, and it will start back up where it left off. The last thing I wanted to mention is there's been a couple times where I've messed up and I've switched her pumps. So I've put the TPN bag with the lipids pump and the lipids bag with the TPN pump. The worst thing that has happened is that she gets a rapid infusion of lipids and she gets way more than what she needs. And about midnight, the cycle ends and she throws up. I call her doctors. They just tell me what to look for, but throwing up once is okay as long as she doesn't keep doing it. And she can go back to sleep, and then I just don't give her lipids the next day, and then we get back on track the following. I just wanted to let you know because that happens to many parents, because you get in autopilot mode and you just forget, and don't feel bad about it. It's just an honest mistake, and she'll be okay.